Hey everybody, it's Adam from EveningTheScore. I'm going to try to do something today that I've never really done. And we're going to see how this goes. I just released a new Evening the Score single called Anytime Now that you can listen to on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube and wherever you get music at. And I'm going to take you through the song as I recorded it in Logic Pro X here on my iMac. And basically just, give you, some insights, some behind the scenes stuff on how I make music generally outside of certain things like the Evening the Score Delusions EP that Jeff Treader produced and Johnny Lincoln drummed on, or the Evening the Score single 2020 that Jim Wilcox drummed on and produced. Everything else is pretty much done by me, so thought I'd just kind of walk you through it. So this is, literally the session for any time now. So as far as like the beginning of the song, the whole album was recorded guitar-wise on this 15-watt PV solid-state practice amp. It claims to have some like trans tube technology, something or other, but just this really basic amplifier. So one of the reasons why the guitar sounds the way that it does, outside of the fact that it was performed on a practice amp, is because I wanted to, which the promo of Anytime Now was also sort of an homage to, that the song came together over basically a day of me like throwing some thoughts against the wall and recording the ones that I thought were good in this iPhone voice memo thing. And then what I was doing over the weeks that followed is just trying to like further format and just move things around and ditch some parts and, get the lyrics up to speed and all that sort of thing. So one of the reasons why I specifically wanted to open with a guitar that actually didn't sound great, like it just sounds like kind of a ratty recording of a guitar, is because this song started in a ratty voice memo recording. So I wanted to kind of do some sort of a recording homage to that. So that's why the guitar sounds the way that it does. As far as these vocals go, they are probably like the most crisp vocals that I've captured of my own, volition on these recordings that I do, and it's because it's a new microphone. I got this like XML 70 something recently that I used to have a long time ago, back when I was trying to build like this home studio, and it was real low tech and what have you, but I used to have this MXL pack. It had like I think it was like a 990 back then, and then a little pencil condenser mic with it, or that was dynamic, doesn't matter. I got back another one of those XML mics and used it for this. So the vocals are just really crisp and clear and present, which you won't notice on a lot of the other stuff. Like on, Farewell Aquarius specifically, I used a different type of dynamic mic for that. But on Panic, I did those vocals with Jeremy Burgett at his home studio. So there is a little bit more of a rich quality to that. Doors could open. A little farther into the song, just kind of a building guitar part there. Now introducing in the song the drums. This is something that I think is relatively unique to what I do. Just because I guess I haven't met any other bands or, anybody that functions like this, but I use the digital drum kits that are built into the recording software to do the drums myself, just through like the keyboard and stuff like that. So what you're hearing on this, and basically what you heard on Farewell Aquarius, on Panic, is all onboard drums. I'm pretty sure I used the SoCal kit on all of them, just because I think it has a really nice kind of round, sort of basic rock and roll sound. So anything rock and roll, distorted guitars, etc., tends to sound good with it. But anyway, that's what you're hearing here is just kind of basic digital drums. And I mean, I do my best to like turn them up to a certain level so that they can kind of compete with the other instruments. And then, although most of this performance is pretty basic because I wanted to keep the drums pretty basic, there's a few parts during the song that I'll probably point out to you where I wanted them to stand out a little bit more, do little, fills or runs or anything like that. But that is the drummus. The guitars. Is anybody? Well, let's start with the bass guitar. The bass guitar. This is actually something new from Panic moving forward. I did the Farewell Aquarius album, the bass guitar parts of that album, with a regular guitar plugged into a Boss ME2 multi-effects pedal that has a expression pedal on it, and that would allow me to use like the octave changer on it. So I dropped the octave of a regular guitar down to, essentially the octave of bass guitar, which is also why the bass guitar doesn't sound incredibly well on Farewell Aquarius, because it's not a bass guitar, it's just a guitar that's, tuned down like that. But in that I was doing what I could with what I had at the time. I'm pretty happy with it. But the bass guitar that you hear on here is the one that I bought to record Panic with. I've since then used it in my Alice in Chains tribute band Grind. It's kind of like an accidental win for me, because when I bought the bass guitar, I originally just bought it because it had a very specific set of pickups. It has like the jazz bass pickups down at the bridge, and then the P bass pickups kind of in the middle position. But then when I actually got it, I discovered that it was an active bass, meaning that there's like a battery to it and all that, and so it really delivers a much richer sound. So that was kind of accidental, but ended up being something that I really enjoyed. So what you get on the album here is actually kind of a really up-the-middle bass sound. Like, I didn't even really EQ it to be too heavy or too... I just wanted it to be there, and I didn't need it to do anything fancy. I wasn't doing any kind of like ska walk-ups or anything like that. It was a really basic bass part. And then when you get into the guitar parts, there's kind of a lot actually going on here. So I used two different guitars to record this song. One is a Fender Showmaster that I've had since like 2004, something like that. I don't even think they make them anymore, but I've got one, and I've got a Seymour Duncan humbucker, just in the single bridge position of that. And then I've had this like sort of project guitar for a while. This it started out, I think, as actually a Starcaster, which, like, there's Fender, then there's Squier, then there's Starcaster. It's like just a really low end, really cheap guitar. And eventually I put some new pickups on it. I put like these Hot Rail single coil pickups in there that are just real meaty, real dirty, I guess you could say, and had this like maple neck on it, and it was cool for a while. But at some point I was just like, I'm just over this guitar. I don't even really feel like playing it anymore. And then at some point I talked to Anthony over at Covet Guitars, and I was like, hey, what about putting a new neck on this thing? Because it just had the same old Starcaster neck, and even with a good setup on it, like, it was just, I don't know, it was kind of thick. It just wasn't fun to play. So I talked to him about it, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so he ended up finding me this rosewood neck with a reverse headstock. So instead of it, facing the way you would tune it for a right-handed guitar player, it's a left-handed guitar stock. And then he put it on the guitar, and not only does it sound great because he did an amazing job setting it up, but it also sort of has like this cool look to it now, and really just changed the whole nature of that guitar for me. So the two guitars being played on this entire song are the Showmaster and now the the Frankenstein of the guitar. But there's two very specific guitar parts kind of going on at the same time. One of them is like the Frankenstein guitar, which I call Mutt, doing bar chords. So just a really kind of driving, very basic situation. And the other one is my Showmaster, which I call Eleanor, doing the same type of thing, bar chords, but through a humbucker. So I don't know if you can hear like the difference there, where it's a little tighter, it's a little more crisp and what have you. So there was those two guitars. In the beginning of the... Well, this is just the chorus of the song. I guess now that I think about it, there are two very specific vocal things going on here that I intentionally mixed so that they would be just like complementing each other, but I think that also means that you may not consciously hear the second one. So there is a lead vocal line.
And what we want and what we need,
and then there's a harmony to it,
is to be free.
You know what I mean? And then it just kind
of jealousy,
it's a pretty basic
of hate and
bottom
greed.
harmony. And it's really just there to kind of fill out or open up those chorus lyrics and that what have you. But I think it's pretty effective. So when we get into the second verse, there's kind of a lot of things happening.
Anything now.
So the first thing you might not notice, because I've actually had a couple of people tell me that they didn't notice it, is there are some like Frankie Valli oohs going on in the background of what I'm singing. Like there's these ones. And then as I make it through this part of the song, there's like a second one that joins them. And again, these are meant to kind of, just add a sort of a melodic texture to this second verse. But what I never really realized until I had, I guess, gotten kind of far into the recording process is I had actually written and performed a guitar lead, kind of this little crunchy thing specifically for the second verse. And and actually, I guess before I get into that, after that section, there's another section where it's the same vocal construct kind of, but I kind of change it to ahs instead of oohs, and it gives more like a Beach Boys kind of vibe. But right now it's just like the two vocals. But then eventually I add in this third one. That's kind of hard to hear because it's more of like like a baritone kind of thing. But anyway, so those are in the back. I think you could probably hear it a lot better than that, the very tail end part of it. Hear that? Like there, you hear that like full body vocal chord right there. So there's all those happening in the background of the second verse. And then if you're listening, the thing that I think you end up missing, because your ears are listening to the main vocal part, you're listening to the oohs, there's all that happening. In the middle of all that, the thing that I'm almost most proud of that you just end up missing completely because I just sort of layered it too much is this cute little part. I love it so much. I was so proud of it when I wrote it, and then just the way that I recorded everything, it kind of got buried in the mix. So it's there, but you really just can't tell, which really just bums me out to no end. But there's all of that, and then obviously just the second. Oh, one more thing. I was telling you that every now and again I'd want to show you something that I think is super cool in the drum section. In the middle of this part. if you listen, I'll just isolate the drums so you can hear it better. But there's this really cool like drum fill, like thing that was kind of accidental, but I just love it. You get that? Like, just, I don't know. I thought it was great. So it's something I'm happy about, but it's just, again, because there's already a lot going on with the vocals and everything, it just gets kind of buried in the mix, and I don't know that it gets enough attention. Then there's the second chorus. The second chorus leads into the guitar solo, which there's two things essentially going on, sort of in the same space that I think are unique. One of them is that there is a huge like guitar, bass, and drum just kind of just rain down to these giant beats. And that's all. And there's even like the chord sequence is actually even adjusted in the next part of it, so they're not exactly alike, which again was intentional. And I really had this plan for that to just be big. And my original idea for recording the song is what I was going to try to do with the drums is I was going to be like and just try to do some kind of like drum soloing kind of thing in the middle of there. But as I was kind of stressing about figuring that out, especially in this like MIDI environment where it's kind of hard to like design drums, at some point I had this thought where I was just like, dude, you're a guitar player. Just play the guitar. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up sitting down with my guitar and I ended up writing a solo for this song. The writing of it took probably about an hour. And literally I just put that section on loop and I just played it and played it and played it and played to it until I found something that I liked. And then once I got something that I liked, I had to play it enough times to where like what you hear is a pretty solid performance. So what ended up coming through was this fun piece here. The EQ on it alone is so piercing and biting. And just this whole... such an intimidating thing as a guitar player to play that, to play it like in time, to, you know, sort of have like an Angus Young feel to it, you know. So that part was played on the Boss ME2 pedal, I think with the DS1 setting, which, fun fact, I think is the same pedal that Kurt Cobain used to record Nevermind with. So. But, you know, when all is said and done and everything came together, I think they, like, work well together as a unit. There's a lot of things to understand about why that section sounds the way that it sounds, because I was trying to put a guitar solo in there that almost rose above the entire song and almost stole the entire song because it's just so assaulting and so gritty and epic. But at the same time, it had to complement both the ba 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 those things, as well as the chord structure, which is when I got into that, I had to be really specific about where I was placing those notes because again the chords changed the second time through, so I had to like complement the key of what was going on specifically, and then just that end part was like just to be right there with all the bum 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 bum, just to be on every one of those notes. It took some very specific writing of the solo to get into that space, and I'm very happy with it and proud of it. This part is where I think there's some good stuff that happens in here, but the way that, like when you bounce a full track out as like a wave file to eventually put it up on one of these distribution platforms, like it gets a little muddy to the point that you really don't 100% even hear what's happening. So I think the buildup gets a little bit lost in the compression and just the way all of this bounces out. So based on that, I'm just going to break down for you this end breakdown section. So once the solo's through, there is just a bar or two of just the guitar just chugging. And then the drums start in right there. And I'm going to play the drum section by itself for you all the way through, just so you can kind of hear everything there. Because again, I'm proud of it, but like I think it gets lost in the final bounce of this song. So you get the there it is. So again, there is like a tom hitting, which is then joined by a kick drum hitting, which then has this like build up snare roll, which is really hard to do with MIDI drums, because I don't know if you can see it from there, but there's actually 4 different snare drum tracks, because what I essentially ended up doing was I just would set up that drum fill progressively on 4 different tracks and then utilize the volume of them to try to give it some accent, to try to make it feel like the snare drum is being hit harder and harder and harder until you eventually get the roll. The roll I'm really happy with, but again, I think it just gets lost in the buildup of the guitars and everything. But the snare to tom drum roll I really love. I don't know. It's not. I think by itself it sounds awesome, but it gets a little lost in the mix. So in the final chorus of the song, on one hand, it's really just like the end of the song, and it sounds pretty much like everything you've heard up to that point.
And what we want, and what we need is to.
I guess the one thing that's there that wasn't there in the previous, let's see, would be this guy, which is, I wanted to kind of layer the guitars a bit more, and so this is just kind of it's meant to do 2 things really. It's meant to bring out like the minors and majors of the chords that are being played, but also to add tempo wise to sort of like the rhythm of what's happening by like doing that little picking pattern, just to get the song bouncing a bit more, I guess you could say. So all of that is happening. Here, there's kind of a lot of things that start happening at the same time here, but let's start with the guitars. So, soloing the 2 guitar parts specifically, there's the one that you've already heard, which is this one that we were just talking about, and then because I start doing like a strum pattern on that, which you'll hear right here. I just turn that into kind of thing. So in order to try to keep the other thing going as well, so it's still the do while I'm doing this, I'm just trying to build it up. I put another guitar on that's playing clean through an effect called chorus. That's pretty cool. So you hear it. That's the part just opening the whole thing up again, You could start. I mean, you lose the just in the mix and everything, but I think the other part stands out and is kind of nice. One of the things that I'm proudest of about this song is the backup harmonies, not just the immediate vocal harmony, but the ahs at the very end of it. And I'm going to solo those for you and play them for you, just because I think you can hear them and I think they are impactful, but I guess just to take you into the intricacies of them in this behind the scenes thing, I think it's worth a listen. So these are the ahs in the end of the song. Very Beach Boys, very. A lot of very specific vocal chords. And then there's this lift. Now, I don't know that I'm going to bother going through how tough that was to get. One of those tracks, the mic isn't set up correctly for how loud I was singing, and so it actually kind of overextended it and distorted it. So I had to go in there and actually pull the gain down and just kind of put it in a certain place in the mix to make sure it wouldn't be overbearing to the listener, but that the note would still be present. So I got the lift, I got how that worked out, but I had to mess with it to make it sound right. And those are all me, just singing. You can already hear it. That's the one that was just killing everything. So, if you glue the whole thing together, this is what you get for the last part.
And what we want, and what we need, our eyes to see a need, to feel the need, to live in peace.
Now, for those of you who have heard this song and know what comes next, it could be argued that it's a divisive way of ending the song, but my real reason for doing it, I as I got closer to the end and of just the recording process, I hadn't specifically decided that there was going to be this end speaking part, but I got to some point where I was like, this song has a hope and an inspiration to it, which is actually kind of against what I usually write. If you listen to my other, I don't know, kind of depressed or just emotionally waffling music, this song just has a lot of, I don't know, kind of oomph to it. So I thought, basically what ended up happening is the way the song, the way that I finished the recording initially was that I just kept playing the chords. I kept the drums going and everything with no real reason for doing that. I was just trying to give myself something to play with, something to work with, in case I wanted to do a fade out, in case I wanted to, even if I just wanted the song to stop, I could literally just choose the right beat and just stop the song. What you're hearing right now is the fade out. But the more that I listened to it, just as I was bouncing, different mixes and versions of it and stuff, I thought, that space is a really nice space to put a quote or something like that. And basically just one day I was like, you know what? The last statesman that I have memory of is Barack Obama. Because, I think George W. Bush gave some pretty interesting addresses, and I think, there's probably stuff in there that I could have pulled from, or, I don't know, John F. Kennedy, or, there's stuff out there that I could have pulled from, or even Martin Luther King, based on, I guess some of the racial implications of this song. But I thought, let me listen and see if I can find a speech by Barack Obama that I think would fit. And I literally just found this YouTube video that was just like best Barack Obama speeches, and I was just like laying on my girlfriend's bed, and she was playing on her phone, and I just started like listening to the speech, and it just had segments of different speeches. And toward the end, there was this one segment, and as I was listening to it, I was just like, that's it. That's exactly the way this song should end. You couldn't say it more perfectly. So this is the segment. I don't know what speech it came from. It feels like it came either just before he got elected or right after he got elected, because it just feels like it was kind of in that area of his campaign. But this is the speech by itself.
Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women, folks with disabilities, all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Again, in the same of like any time, in the same vein of the message of this song, just what he's saying, not necessarily who's saying it or any of that. Just what he is saying feels like it matches the message of this song. Where it becomes interesting from a recording standpoint is, again, it was in a video where there were segments of multiple speeches. So that segment happens, and then 2 or 3 seconds later, it just moves on to a different address and something else. So I actually didn't have any like the cheering and the applauding and stuff like cuts off really quickly. So what I ended up doing is I grabbed a chunk of it and I just copied it, hoping that it would just blend together nice enough that it just sounded like consistent cheering, so that I could fade the song out with the cheering and with what's going on thing. So this is what it sounds like by itself.
Flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
If you can hear that, where it like goes
Flag
like,
to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
that's because that's the clip like looping over and over again. In the song you can't tell, and it sounds pretty legit, but I hope that you enjoy the song. If you haven't already heard it, again, we went through a little bit here, but you can go to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to music, and go to the Evening the Score band page or whatever it is, and anytime now I'll be right there toward the top. I don't know if I'll keep doing these, like, I guess we'll see what the response is like, but I thought it might be fun to just do like a little behind the scenes video about this song. Hope you enjoy it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to, I don't know, getting inspired again at some point and putting out some more Evening the Score magic. Thanks for watching.
And what we want and what we need.